Hey guys, it's Irish again. I thought I would do a new segment, just to do a brief history here. I used to, the whole channel started with a LDC Now podcast. A bunch of us in the current LDC decided to bring this back, so I thought I would bring in a few guys who were interested in it. I'll start with you, AccuBase. Tell us how you got brief 2-cent tour of how you got started in Linux and what distro you're on.
All right, cool. So yeah, I'm a Cubase, or call me Ed, really, I prefer. So originally, I got into Linux because I was trying to find something I could record music with, and couldn't afford a Mac, and Windows was just not doing me any favors whatsoever on that. So one of my mates just said, "Try this Linux disk." So I chucked it in, and yeah, it was a bit of a rocky start because I did the thing that everyone always does when they first switch over to it, which is, trying to run all your stuff in Wine. That doesn't really work very well with audio stuff, unfortunately, but, I figured I'd give it a try anyway. So I started using the actual kind of native Linux tools like Ardor and LMMS, even things like Lillipond, which is a really, really awesome piece of kit for typesetting sheet music. That's pretty much how I got started. I was mostly at that point using Ubuntu and Mint and all the kind of the usual suspects of kind of starter distros, really. I moved on to Arch after that for a really long time because I had a lot of trouble with running kind of later versions of the software on Ubuntu. I did what they call the PPA hell, which is just adding PPAs until things just quit working on you. So I went to Arch instead to try and get some later Ardor goodness and all that stuff. These days I'm running Nix OS, which is not I doubt not many people have heard of it, but it's a really interesting one. I still like my Arch. I still run that on like my laptop and stuff. But yeah, running Nix OS on my main machines these days. So that's where I'm at so far.
Awesome. What base is NixOS?
It's its own thing. It's a completely what's it's quite weird actually because obviously we're going to be talking about Ubuntu later on, and a lot of the designs that Ubuntu are trying to kind of go down these days, which in terms of like the read-only base with transactional updates and like the user build packages rather than like root install packages. NixOS kind of already does all that stuff, and so it's kind of interesting to see how Ubuntu are now trying to do it compared to how Nix already does it. But yeah, it's its own thing. It's based on Nix Package Manager, and yeah, it's a completely kind of unique distro at the moment. But like I said, it looks like Ubuntu are going down a similar route. So
Cool. All right, C. Smith, how did you get started with Linux and what distro you're on?
I got started with Linux mainly due to Windows Vista just blue screening every other boot. So I was like, screw this, I'm out of here. So I started out with Ubuntu 10.04 and stayed with that for like 4 years. And moved on to Arch, and for the most part, I've been happy on Arch. That's what I reasonably stayed with for a while. Granted, I'm a distro hopper.
Well, that's probably a good thing because then we can, get more of a variety since you've, dabbled in different things. We could, get your viewpoints on, okay, you've done Mint, you've done Gentoo, you've done this and that, so we can get different viewpoints on it. All right, I'll put in my little 2 cents, even though I think I said this before in the first LDC iteration, but I started when I was in school. I was going for an IT position, was going to do help desk, so I decided, you know what, you never know if there's going to be Linux stuff in a future employee. So I decided to so I started with, I think, Ubuntu 12.04 or 12.10 came out first. Didn't like Unity, which a lot of people don't. So I went over to Mint 14. Then, like a couple months later, I went to Fedora. I tried Mangia. I tried Sabian. So I landed on Arch like 6 months after starting Linux, and I was on there for about 3.5 years. I still have it on a couple of my laptops, and I'm going to put it on my Raspberry Pi. But I also I'm decided to start running Gentoo, so I'm on Gentoo right now. So it's I'm liking it so far. So yeah, so in this first episode, I guess we're going to do episodes. We thought since Ubuntu is going to be coming out very soon with a new release of 1704, I thought we would decide to talk about the, I guess, the how Ubuntu is in the Linux world. Because when I moved over, everyone says, okay, you have to go. That was the first one that I thought of because of Canonical, and there was Red Hat and SUSE Enterprise and all that. But when I first started my Linux journey, it was Ubuntu. I don't know if you guys have the same story.
Yeah, pretty much. When I first started it, like I said, one of my friends just gave me this Ubuntu disk. I didn't even know what it was, to be honest with you. And I just bunged it in. I think it was either 10.04 or 10.10. Because I updated it. I think if I remember correctly, I updated it until 11.10, which is the one that Unity was default on. I really liked Unity, actually. I'm not really sure why everyone hated on it so much. I thought it was pretty cool. But the thing with it was, though, Unity, although it was great at those stages, it was a little bit slow, a little bit unstable, and everything like that. So I didn't really stick with it. Not because I didn't like it, just because it just didn't really work on my hardware too well. But yeah, I think pretty much everyone kind of starts on Ubuntu, though, don't they?
Yeah, I think it's either Ubuntu or they quickly switch over to Mint. If we go over
Yeah.
to Distro
I tried Mint for a bit. I couldn't get into it. I had a lot of problems with. I can't remember exactly what it was with Mint that I had trouble with, but I had all sorts of things wrong with it. Like, I mean, if you think the PPA hell's bad on Ubuntu, it was even worse on Mint because you just ran into incompatibilities all the time.
Yeah, so when I switched over to Linux, Ubuntu was the thing, and I think they switched to Unity shortly before I did it, and obviously there's this big uproar and stuff like that, but at least Canonical or Ubuntu was making new things in the Linux world. However, I think the last couple of releases they haven't done really anything. So do you guys believe they're still relevant in the Linux community?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, you say they're not doing anything. They're not doing anything with the desktop, really, but I mean, they've been concentrating on Unity 8 and the phones and all that good stuff. And so you have to kind of think, the next LTS coming up, which I'm going to guess 1804?
Yes.
Yeah, it's 1804.
Yeah, that LTS, when that comes up, I'm imagining that LTS, that's going to have Unity 8 on it. It's going to have your snaps. I don't know if it'll have the transactional updated root, because I think that's just something they're keeping on devices rather than desktops. But if it is, I'm imagining next release, 1710, probably going to be a real biggie, because that's going to be when they're starting to push this stuff down to get it kind of stable for the LTS.
Because I think wasn't it like a couple years ago that they started to rewrite a whole new init system, so it would be Mir, and they were going to push Mir, and I think it was 1604, 16.
Oh, it was way
something.
before that.
No, I'm saying when they.
I'm sure it was in the 15s. Yeah.
Yeah, so when they were they had like Xmir, and they're transitioning.
Yeah, I mean, as well, they have in the past few releases as well. They have gone over to a systemd rather than Upstart. So, well, it's not really something you'd probably notice just as a normal user. It is kind of something they have been updating kind of in the back end, I suppose. But yeah, Mir the display server. That's a weird one, isn't it? Because I mean, it's still not default. Yeah, Unity 7 is still running on X rather than Mir. But
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, a lot of people, there's like hundreds of distributions that, forked off of Ubuntu, and they take
yeah,
a lot of stuff from what Ubuntu's doing, like their repos and everything, but I can't think of one who's trying to use the mirror in its
well, no, they
system
won't.
with it.
They won't do, because you have to remember their desktops. Like Ubuntu, which is XFCE based. XFCE isn't a Mir compositor; it's an XORS one.
And Mir isn't quite ready for prime time anyway, so you won't see anyone reasonably using it yet. I mean, it's only got the
getting better.
basics currently.
Well, which is interesting because you say that it's not ready for prime time, but personally, Wayland, I don't think is due for prime time, and some of the bigger GNOME, Fedora, they use Wayland by default now, so it's interesting.
And they even backported the changes to try and get Wayland working on the NVIDIA drivers before the 3.24 release on GNOME, which was supposed to be the release when it actually worked, but they backported all them changes to 3.22 just so they could get it pushed to the new Fedora release.
Yeah, so
actually 3.24 actually works with GNOME. Not GNOME, but NVIDIA, no, because it uses EGL streams, which is what NVIDIA is using.
That's what I mean, but Fedora, they backported that change to GNOME 3.22. So then they could have 3.22 in their new Fedora release and have the Wayland on NVIDIA working. It was, I mean, I don't know how they did it. I don't see any other distros that have done it, but they did. So the new Fedora is a proper kind of Wayland setup, really, even with the NVIDIA drivers.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that. No, just go on with your point. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that I haven't found that 3.22 on Fedora even works with NVIDIA under Wayland. It just immediately crashes back to the desktop. Not desktop, but GDM.
Where it was supposed to work, I suppose.
So, one of the bigger things, because of these last few releases, they've been working on the mobile, and I know a lot of you guys have tried Ubuntu Touch. I guess give me your viewpoints on that, because I think it's been a big flop. I think anytime that Linux tries to get into the mobile world, it's a flop. So let's hear what you guys have to say about the Ubuntu Touch, or just the interface and everything.
Do you want to go first on that one, C. Smith, seeing as you used it quite a while ago, didn't you?
Yeah, this was back around 2013. I mean, I like the interface. It's just the industry itself is so ingrained and entrenched with who is in it that any newcomer is going to have a hell of a time trying to get in. Like, it's going to be a huge uphill battle for them, because Android,
definitely.
like 70 or 80% of the market, with iOS taking the rest. If you look back at, say, Migo, that really didn't take off because of that. There was no room for it. I'm not claiming I'm a market person, but I do pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah. But I mean, what did you actually think of it when you're using it, though? I mean, ignoring the fact that not many people are using it. What did you think when you were using it? I mean, did you like it as an OS, or?
Oh yeah, I really liked it. I wish they still supported the 2012 Nexus 7, which I have, because there is no way I'm getting it on my Galaxy phone with how locked down it is. But I mean, just the entire way you navigate it, a breath of fresh air that is sorely needed in my eyes, because
definitely,
yeah, and also that it's full on Linux. That's a plus in my eyes.
Yeah, did when you used it, did it have the Xmay and the what's it called now, the container thing that they have for running Zorg apps on it? Did it have that on your tablet, or no?
No, this was, like I said, back in, I believe, at latest 2013, so that hadn't come around yet.
Yeah, but when I used it, I run it on my Nexus 4. I mean, I'm not running it now, but I ran it as a daily driver for months. I went through loads of upgrades to it, through the different versions, and the upgrades all went brilliantly because of this kind of weird transactional image update thingy that they have. Yeah, and on the later releases, they did enable the XMay layer, so you can run actual, desktop Linux apps on top of it. Which I mean, you could do it on the old Nokia, like you said, the Migo and the Mimo phones, and that's something I'd been missing. And it was great to see that running on a Nexus 4, especially because it's a fairly old device now, but it's powerful enough to run those programs, and so it was interesting to see that. My main problem with the OS was, I mean, it's not really a canonical problem, is it? But my main problem was just as with anything really, just the lack of apps. What really bugged me is every time I went to the App Store, I'd see some cool new app, and I was like, "Oh, cool! Let's click on it," and it'd be a web app. That's the main issue for me with it. I mean, if I wanted web apps, I've run Firefox OS on a phone for quite a while. I'd rather just stick to that if I just want web apps, But I agree with you what you said about the navigation on the OS. That was really good, actually. Like you said, I definitely prefer the OS as a kind of a user experience than something like Android, because I think Android's interface is a bit dull, really. Ubuntu, it's quite kind of nice to use. My only other problem I had with Ubuntu was I don't know if you probably did run into this problem. I bet it was even worse back then. Was it had just randomly background apps like after 5 seconds of putting them back? Did you ever hit that problem?
I honestly am having trouble pinning what you were saying.
Oh, sorry. Say you've had your Ubuntu Touch running, whatever. You fire up the web browser. You swipe right, so you bring up your app switcher. You hit your, I don't know what you'd click on a tablet. Your, I don't know, like your messaging app, I suppose. When you go back to your web browser, you have to sit there and wait for it to reload because it's gone and backgrounded the process.
Oh yeah, that would take me 10-15 seconds back then.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to load it, so it was much worse. It's getting better, I hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that it takes ages to come up. I really hit the problem with it. Because it's got a what I really liked about Ubuntu Touch, it's got a really nice terminal app. With all your proper kind of bash tools and everything like that in there. And I would SSH into a server, switch to the web browser to look something up, switch back to the terminal to put in a command, and it'd close the SSH session.
Interesting.
That drove me absolutely nuts.
Well, it seems... Go ahead, KDG.
It's like the iPhone was before.
Yes, exactly like that.
Well, to me, it seems like, because I've seen videos and screenshots of, the new Unity 8, and it looks like they're trying to integrate what they did with the Ubuntu Touch and bringing it over to the desk. Do you think it's their master plan of,
definitely, yeah.
Running one OS on all devices.
Yeah, because
it's master plan.
Sorry, go on.
But do you think, the Unity 8 looks very cartoony? Because I also seen screenshots of Ubuntu Touch, and they don't look as cartoony as what Unity 8 looks like now.
Well, I mean, it's the same interface. It's just squashed down. I mean, with my Nexus 4, it has a slim port, I guess, and you could plug it into a monitor, and it would stretch into what you'd call the desktop Unity 8. So that's kind of, so it was the same thing, really. So I don't think they looked any different in that respect.
No, it's the same thing. I know very much about it.
That's kind of the whole point of it, isn't it? That it's the same code.
Yes,
and so you basically just plug it in and it becomes a desktop.
Okay, awesome. All right,
and that's kind of what I was saying when we say that the desktop version of Ubuntu, although it might look like it's stale right now, because it is, because they've done 4 releases with nothing happening to them, once all this technology that they're working on the phone, once that comes onto the desktop, I think we're going to be onto a winner. But we're just waiting for it.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
It's
And,
a long wait.
Yeah, it is. It has
Yeah,
been a
it
long
is.
wait, just because they've announced, oh, we're going to bring Mir and we're going to be working on Unity 8, and it doesn't
And
seem
like you
like
said, the snaps,
anything.
yeah.
nothing happens now.
Well,
They're
that's
trying to
it. All the
introduce
Unity
flat
8 stuff is
packs.
happening on the phone.
Yeah, and like flat packs and everything. I think they're still
Yeah.
they're still trying to be relevant. So I think they are still
Yeah.
relevant in the Linux world. It may not seem like it because, there's a lot of other projects like Ubuntu Mate, Solus, Arch, other stuff like that. It seems like they're like, getting a little bit more popular than Ubuntu, and that there's so much hate
Yeah.
behind it. But I think I agree with you, Ecubase, that they are like a sleeping beast that if you keep poking them,
Yeah.
they're going to be waking up, and they're going to be, be one of the faces of the Linux world. So yeah, I believe they are
Again,
still popular. They're still popular because I think they're within the top 5 in DistroWatch. So they're still relevant.
Oh,
for sure.
yeah, because it's still the one that we all recommend people when they say, I want to try Linux. People always still say, try Ubuntu because it's the one that everyone knows.
DistroWatch doesn't show you how many use it is. Just show how many watch it is.
Yeah. That's why you can't really go based off of DistroWatch just because, I think, what was it, a couple years ago that someone made a script to make Manjaro like number 2 or something like that. So you can't really trust DistroWatch because, I base it off of I'm a Google Plus person, so I see a lot of stuff like that, and even in the Linux world in general, talking like any of the number of podcasts or magazines out there, they're still talking about Ubuntu. So
yeah, it's all there,
they're
isn't
still
it?
popular. So,
and I think kind of the problem that you kind of see when people think Ubuntu's kind of losing the touch a bit. With all these things that they're doing, all this cool technology like your Mir and your Unity 8 and the snappy packages, isn't it? I think the problem is, as I've said, because it's all happening on the phone. We're not seeing it.
yeah,
We're not actually seeing it being used because you're not seeing it on the desktop half the time, are you?
It's not ready for the desktop still yet.
yeah. So it just seems like mobile world doesn't get covered as much, so it doesn't seem like Ubuntu is being the forerunner of a lot of stuff. So all right, well, I think I did miss a person. KDG was muted at the beginning of this whole thing, so let's hear his tale of Linux. So tell us why you got into Linux and what distro are you on?
I started learning about starting distro jumping 4 years ago. 5 years ago, I think. When the next release come out. I have most of my computers on Ubuntu. No, wait. All of my computers is on Ubuntu. Without my main computer that's on Mac, you maybe know. This week I start using more Ubuntu again, and I think I'm going to try switching again. It's my fourth time I try to do a complete switch. Maybe I hope I'm ready to this year. And I read them very much about Ubuntu, Linux. I know very much, but I don't use it every day. But I read all the RSS feeds and kind of thing.
Okay, cool. Yeah, awesome. Well, this was again our first episode, so we're gonna if you guys have any suggestions out there of stuff you guys want to talk about, we can do anything. We can how to switch to Linux, we can do a whole thing on that, or we can do stuff on systemd, Arch, Linux world in general. So if you guys have any suggestions, put them down in the comments section, and hopefully you guys can get something out of this. And yeah, everyone say goodbye to YouTube.
Goodbye,
See
YouTube.
you later.
See ya.